Welcome to our new podcast. Living Matters is a heartfelt podcast series that delves into the profound experiences of living with an incurable illness. Co-hosted by me, Sarah, the founder of Sarah's Star.
And myself, Nicky, founder of My Zen Days. The series opens up conversations about life, death, and everything in between. Through candid discussions, the podcast seeks to provide comfort, insight, and inspiration to listeners going through similar journeys, as well as to those supporting someone that they love who's facing incurable illness.
Hello, Nicky. Welcome to episode 2 of our lovely podcast.
And welcome back. So for everyone who watched the first episode where we're talking about the Death Cafe, today we're going to turn a corner. We're going to talk about something a bit different. Now, I wanted to start off with this question because you said something, Sarah, a while ago to me that took me by surprise. And we were talking about, you said a lot of things.
I was just going to say, I'm like, what did I say this time?
There's been a fair few moments where you've taken me by surprise. But this, so it was not that long ago and we were sitting in Crusoe's on Tynemouth Long Sands Beach in the cafe. And we were talking about the illness and how it's impacted you. And the thing that you said that really sort of caught me off guard was that you don't see it as necessarily a terrible thing, and that actually there's been an unexpected gift in it.
Oh, hugely. So many aspects of my life, I think that. Because I think I would never have slowed down to take everything in the way that I did. You know, and it's picking these little moments where, although things are pretty horrendous at times, finding them little glimmers of joy and glimmers of hope. And in all honesty, I do think that through doing meditation and mindfulness and talking with you about a lot of these things, it's really helped to draw that out of me as well. And it's about stopping and recognising, I don't know, what springs to mind is, you know, the grass is always greener. Because it's not sometimes, but you can still make the most of it.
Because I wonder whether a lot of people, either if they've sort of faced illness themselves or if they, know and love someone who's faced illness, is to think that the whole thing is just bad and horrible and awful and really sad. And that was, I think, what made the difference for me in that conversation was you were talking about exactly this, there being certain moments that you've had since you've been dealing with your illness that have just meant so much more to you than they would have done beforehand.
Yeah, 100%. And I suppose it goes back to losing my dad and then watching him go through it and then die. And then when I was diagnosed first, they weren't saying there isn't anything we can do. You know, it was very much, you've got breast cancer, this is what we're going to do. You know, we're going to give you this treatment. And that was like bang, bang, bang. And my head went straight to, oh, they've got a solution. So I think I might be one of them people who just kind of tries to follow the solution rather than, picking at the problem, really. So even when I was re-diagnosed, I still had a real feeling of, surely this isn't it.
Yeah.
I didn't, because I remember my sister saying, why aren't you crying? Like, why aren't you like lying down? I was just like kind of sitting staring out my bedroom window. And Joanna come home from work, because I actually found out over the phone. And she was like, I don't understand why you're not upset. Because she was devastated. And I think I was trying to piece together, like, what have they actually said? And I remember looking down at the bit of paper and I had wrote things up sideways, random words, little bits everywhere. And I remember Joanne looking at it and just seeing all the words like cancer, incurable, bones, and they're all the words too that I've just said that when you say them to people, they're like, that's not good. Incurable's not good. People, the minute you say bone cancer,
Bones.
They've got you totally written off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just... Yeah, it was a lot, but honestly, my mind went to, right, let's see what they're going to offer. Which is quite good, actually. I think I obviously must protect myself in a way, because it's a hell of a lot of information to take in.
Well, it is, and you spend all day through Sarah's Star, all day, every day, pretty much supporting other people who have similar types of illnesses. And so is that mindset common or is it quite rare?
I've never really thought about it because everybody's so different in how they cope with what's going on, really. So I suppose for me, a big part of it always is there's no right or wrong. And I think it's that. It's once you recognise that this is yours, it's nothing to do with how anybody else is going to manage it. Because very, very quickly, you either get really angry at people because they're managing it so well and you're not. Or, you start making comparisons and then you start trying to do stuff and then it's too much for you. And, I just think it's like really take a step back and think this is just your own. No comparisons. Because even like if you think about something that's happened to you in your life, like even having children, when you were pregnant for the first time, different people's reactions and they love telling you horror stories and
Yeah.
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a bit like, and it is such a joyous thing that I'm liking it, Dee, but it's because there's a lot of similarities with, at times when I'm sick, it can be a bit like morning sickness or, the little bits like that where I can identify the unknown because you don't know what's going to happen. So I suppose that's just a little bit of a comparison. It might not be the best one though.
I find with your mindset in particular, it's always been like more on the positive side, where you would I feel like quite naturally choose, well, what can I focus on? What can I do? Where can I help myself?
Totally.
What can I control?
But you have to think my kids were 3 at 4.5 when I found out. And that's just where your mind goes. What about that? Plus, there isn't any time. As a mum in particular, you can't just have a day off. Don't fancy parenting today, thanks. It's just not happening. And I remember after my dad died, I was like so full of grief and there was no break.
Yeah.
None whatsoever. And I always remembered talking to my dad on the phone at times and one of the kids would be stuck to me and he would say, and I'd be like, I can't even talk to you. Like, they just want everything all of the time.
Yeah.
My own fault for having kids 1.5 years apart as well. So like, they were just so little.
You didn't give yourself a chance.
No, there was no turnaround. But he said to me, isn't it lovely that they love you as much as they do? And I think a lot of it probably comes from him because that's how he chose to be within his illness. He chose to see the positive bits and he really believed that, this was the plan for him and there was a reason behind it. So I suppose maybe I just followed suit. Plus, it's easier for me. Like, I'll often say this, my bad days are so hard because I hate them. I don't really let myself, I'm not very kind to myself on a bad day because it's horrible and I'd rather be in a nicer place, in a better space, in a better headspace, but we're only human.
So what does a bad day look and feel like for you?
Oh, it can vary because it's like there's a bad day when I'm really sick, so I can't really get out of bed and I'm drifting in and out of sleep and I feel like I've got flu. Everything's just feels wrong and horrible. But then in them moments, like, so one of my most recent ones, and I was really sick and Charlie he was gaming next door. And this game was the best game in the world by the sounds of it. But I knew how sick I was because he was screaming at the top of his lungs and I was still drifting in and out of sleep. It's like, I must be sick. This isn't annoying me. Every now and again he'd come in and he'd say, "You okay, Mum? Want some water? Need any medication?" And he was
That's so sweet.
Looking
in
out
the midst
for
of all
me.
of his
In the
gaming.
midst of- yeah, so and then he'd like go and the door would slam and it would be back to Rah! But I thought, for me, I love this is we've created this normal where he can still come and check. I don't love that they have to go through this, but I love that he's got that empathy and capacity to remove himself from something that he's really enjoying to come and make sure that I'm all right because he knows that I'm not doing very well that day. And I think that is quite special, really. And, you know, and even going back to years ago, after having chemo, I was just really not great. I was struggling to get out of bed, and Chris was downstairs and Alice was 3. And I was saying, get your dad, I need him to help me to go to the toilet. And she said, I can help. And the little hand just came up into my hand.
Oh, wow.
And she was so little. But she had this like force about her in her face. Like she was determined, she was helping. And so she helped me out of bed. And I was devastated. And I spoke to my uncle that night and he said, look at the empathy that child has. Not many 3-year-olds would come and help their mum to the toilet. They might be too busy playing or doing something else or crying or looking for your attention. So I think I've always had a lot of people who've helped me to flip them bits on their head and try and look at it from a different angle. And by being able to do that, that's where I think I find them moments where I'm like, do you know what? If I look at this as it's not a horrendous thing, I'll find all them little moments within other people and within my family and friends where they're really powering me through, because I am really lucky with the amount of family and friends I have. Totally in my corner, spurring me on. It's like a whole army. That's what I feel like. I feel like I've got this huge army behind me. So, yeah, I've forgotten the question.
So funny.
Just got off on one.
I totally love that though. I love and the idea, like the little image, the picture of Alice coming up as a 3-year-old at the time.
Little curly hair. I know. They're just forces, honestly. Like, I admire my kids so much because I just think if I went through all this with a parent at their young ages, you know, Charlie would have made me a card for if I was having an operation. And I mean, I think he might listen to this, so I might be dead. But I'd come back after having loads of biopsies when I found out I had breast cancer, and I was getting changed, and he ran into the room and he was like, where'd you get all them stickers? Because I was totally like bandaged up, and he was fascinated. And I said, oh, Mummy's got a pearly boob. And off he went. And I was packing because I was going to Ireland that night. And he came back with a card to Mum. Sorry about your pearly boob. Hope you feel better soon.
Oh my goodness. Really.
And I've still got that. And they're like, it's through a child's eyes that, and they've got the ability to just change, you know, because that changed that really sad moment of, oh my God, my baby's just seen this is horrendous. My baby's just made a beautiful card, which will make me laugh forever because he's wrote boob in it.
Sorry for your poorly boob. How cute. How cute. So you said before that you feel like you've got an army behind you and that it gives you what, I suppose, just another level of strength.
Oh, 100%. Definitely. Like, I have so many people who check in, and also people who check in with my people. And there's something really beautiful about that. Because it's not always just me that isn't okay. And I'm always really mindful of that as well. And because, like I said, because I've been on the outside looking in, and sometimes it's worse on the people on the outside looking in, because that level of control, there's no control in this at all, really. So as the person who's going through it, you might seem like you've got a bit of control just from how you're dealing with things. But on the outside looking in, you can never tell what someone's really thinking, you know. And we all love to make an assumption. So, yeah, just I do feel it though. And then times when I'm really sick, I feel like a lot of positivity, a lot of just people spurring me on. and people who've got my corner and prayers, well wishes, positivity. It's unreal. Like, I feel really, really lucky. And I think that's probably what people find weird. That I feel so lucky that being in this situation, I have so many people around me who are totally have my back.
Mm-hmm.
And that, how amazing is that? You could go through a whole lifetime not having that. And I know it's took to getting cancer and for it to be incurable to get to this point. But that's only because I've recognised it. I think if everybody takes a bit of a step back, you already know your people, don't you? You already know your army and they're already there. So I suppose a message in that is don't wait until something pretty awful happens to recognise your people are there, really.
One of the reasons that you started the Death Cafes in the first place was to provide like a safe environment for people who are struggling with their own illness, who they might know that they have their own army, their family and friends, but they are really worried about upsetting them. And so they censor themselves and they censor what they say because they don't want to make it worse for the people that they love. So I'm curious with you, how have you like fortified your army, right, and built your relationships and kept them being so strong? Have you had to overcome your own ideas about, well, I don't want to be honest and really tell people how awful I really feel, or if I'm scared?
I think the first time around I didn't really talk about it too much. I spent a lot of time on my own in my own head because I was just in bed so much. And by doing that, and when you're in your own head, I used to, when I would talk, I'd say, oh, I'm like a broken down record player. Until my sister said, you don't talk about this. But I think I was playing it out. So I felt like it was just there going on and on and on and on. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't saying it out loud to anyone. And I think there was a little part of me that thought I need to not be negative because, you know, they're saying it's going to go away and, you know, I'm going to get better and life's going to get better. And I just went down that route. But as well as that, I can look back now and be like, I made so many bad choices the first time around. Like, it makes me incredibly sad for my family because I didn't want anyone to know. I just was like, this isn't anybody's business. So I had donated my hair to the Princess Trust and I did that for the kids because it's visible. So then my hair was short. So then I got a short wig. And then the mums at school, well, and then I just kind of disappeared from school. So my sister's kids were in the same classes as my kids. So she was just left on it, her and a select few friends that I told. And they were like the Secret Service, I suppose. And then people would say, where's your Sarah? I haven't seen her for ages. And then when I'd rock up, I'd have my short hair and people would say, oh my God, you're so brave for getting your hair cut. I could never do that. And I'd be thinking, oh my God, I can't cope with this. Like, these are really lovely people. And they think I'm brave for getting my hair cut, bald underneath it. And I think I got towards doing radiotherapy. So I'd come through the mastectomy, all the chemo. And it was Charlie's birthday in June. And we were sitting at the party. And someone mentioned me getting my hair cut short. And just, I remember all the faces because they were just such lovely people. And I felt like an absolute fake. And I felt like a liar. And so I just said, I didn't cut my hair short. I said, I'm actually bald underneath this. And the shock. And then I was thinking, oh, why did I do this? You shouldn't do that to people at a kid's birthday party. But it was like, you know, one of them things where it just, and I looked at my sister and I think that's where I feel the worst. Like, she just did everything to make sure I was okay. Mm-hmm. But it must have been killing her because she was just left with the 4 kids all the time, her own 2, my 2, mm-hmm. All the parties, you know, that went on for 6 or 7 months of me just being missing and her trying to pretend that I was just busy doing something all the time. And I just recognise now the toll that takes on other people. Mm-hmm. And my best friend will often say to me, it's not a dirty little secret. Because there's actually nothing in it. Everyone is entitled to deal with their illness, whatever way they want to deal with it. But I'm just talking about how I learned from my mistakes. Because when it came around again, I just thought, my actions affect more people than just me. And this isn't fair on my wider family. You know, they need to talk, they need help, and they need support as well. And just because I've decided, you know, that I'm going to keep this secret, it isn't fair. It wasn't fair on them at all. So, yeah, I think that's where Sarah Star really started coming from, because I learned from my mistakes. I suppose that's it, really.
And so why did you choose to keep it a secret? Is it because was it a privacy thing, like I don't want people to know? Or is it I don't want to have to keep explaining things and talking about it?
Yeah, I just didn't. Do you know? I know I'm probably weirdo at times, but I just thought I can't be bothered with the drama. Like, we hadn't long lost my dad. I was a bit like, oh, can we have one thing at a time, please? I didn't want loads of messages. I didn't. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think I just in my head went, it's no one's business. I'll sort this out. Back to me. I honestly, I don't know where my head was at. I just think I seen a family that was already grieving so much, and I didn't want to add to it, so I tried to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah, and it sounds as though, as a sort of like plan and as a strategy, the first time round when you were ill, choosing to keep it a secret, choosing to not tell anybody. Well, I can understand it because you didn't want to cause the family more drama. It actually ended up creating more problems than it solved, if you know what I mean. So then, for the second time, did you just make a conscious choice of, I'm just going to be open about it, and we're going to deal with this because this is what it is?
I don't know. I don't actually remember. I think it was so much more serious. Like, it was so bad, so quickly. And we'd gone from, like Chris used to always say, new boob, new life. And the reason I found out I had cancer again was because they'd scanned my torso to see if I had good enough blood vessels, so that they were going to use the skin from, like, it was skin sparing surgery. So they were going to take some of the fat from my stomach and some of the blood vessels and make it up into a boob. And then it, like, if you put on weight, it gains weight, and if you lose weight, so it was like the most natural it could be. And that's what I was being prepped for. And so when they did that scan, it showed up in my pelvis, and then they wanted to do an extra scan, and then it showed up like it was in the top, middle, and bottom of my spine. So I like to call it strike it unlucky, which only works if people of a certain age, because younger people don't know what that game show was. But yeah, so there was too much to hide, basically.
Too much. So you sort of didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
That time around.
Yeah, and I think the cracks were already starting to show anyway. And I think once my hair and that started growing back, I was then at the point where I was just like, oh, I'm not bothered. Who knows? Because maybe it was because it was bad. Like, as I seen it, I was better. But we had this whole new life. We moved house. You know, this was the plan. I'm going to do all of these things, and then you're just not. And it's as simple as that. And I think it would be nice if there was a way we could all be prepared for that. But in saying that, and being completely honest, the closest I think people have got to seeing what it's like to have an illness and to feel isolated and away from everyone is COVID. So I think for the first time during COVID, I thought that this is, because during COVID, I wasn't allowed out at all. And from walking around the garden in a circle, I burned a circle in there, or grass in the back garden. It was ridiculous. But I do, and me and my sister she'd come and stand at the window, and I'd crack it open, and we'd march on the spot every time we were going for a walk, and just talk to each other. And it's all adjustments. that you have to make in life.
So what is it, when you talk about your army, because I love that
I love my
term
army.
of it, right? What does the army mean to you?
Oh, just, it's everything. It's everything and anything. It's knowing I can text someone at any minute, knowing I can pick up the phone and call, knowing if I need something, knowing that if I'm like, oh, I don't want to cook tonight, that I could potentially ring a good handful of people and say, would you make my dinner? And they would. I haven't particularly done things like that, but it's knowing, I have said to a few friends, I actually think they'd probably like it if I did it more. Because I do think I did recognise this too. People like a job when you're not very well, because it helps them to feel like they're helping you. But I had to really get over myself with that, like, because I'm so independent and I just don't like asking people for anything ever, really. I had to do a lot of work to ask a friend, and it was my friend Lindsay, and I said, would you make us meatballs? And I don't know what I thought was going to happen just by saying that to her. But my insides were like, I'm that. I don't know why. I just don't really like relying on people. So to find yourself in a situation where you don't have that much of a choice but rely on other people. Maybe that's why I've taken to looking at it as they're my army of support rather than I'm an inconvenience to them.
But you've hit the nail on the head, by the way, about the if you don't ask, you effectively steal some joy that someone, even if it's only a tiny bit of joy someone could have, knowing that they're there for you in a meaningful way.
Yeah, that's exactly it, and it is. It's really, really beautiful. Because I do remember Lindsay's face when she came and brought me meatballs, and it was very sweet, and how excited she was. And like, recently my friend Sarah dropped off some banana bread, and I know she'll have loved doing that as well. It just, and it's the little things that, and I always say that to Chris, I've never been a grand gesture person. I like just the small touches where, because that means more to me. I'm not, because it's really interesting now. When you think, I've told you before, I'm not a bucket list person, but I think earlier in life, maybe I might have thought, oh, if I found out I was dying, I'd be doing all these things. And what I would even class as a bucket list, it's so laid back and just not, I think as well, I just thought, sometimes when we've done meditation and it's like, close your eyes and picture your favourite place or the beach, and can you feel it and can you hear it? And from being sick and being in bed, I realised you can. If you get your head under the right place, you can get yourself there anyway. And 2 weeks ago when I was in for chemo, I did the VR headset where I was at the beach. And when I looked down, the water was like washing up on me. Right. And it was all the sounds. And when I turned around, it was amazing. So to be in for chemotherapy, you're all hooked up. And everyone was laughing at me because I was totally like looking around. I must have looked insane. But it's that too. Like, look at how far we've come. That you can be sitting having chemo, but virtually.
Be on a beach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really, really lovely.
So if there was someone listening to this conversation who, like, they themselves as facing illness and thinking, well, I want to have an army, I want to have my army of support, and they probably have some, but they might find themselves thinking, I don't want to overwhelm other people with how I'm feeling, really, and so I don't want to be honest about how I'm really feeling. What would your advice be to them?
I do think it's a very personal journey, that on one hand, because the personal side of it is you need to get yourself to a place where you can ask for help. But obviously I'm just going to plug Sarah's Star now, because by coming in there's so many other like-minded people.
Yeah.
And I've been talking about journaling, and I think that's what got me here. Putting some of it down on paper or even vlogging about it, whatever you need to do or what's right for you. Because one of the biggest things that I'm still realising is the message always is, you're not alone. You're not on your own with us. And as much as you might feel isolated and feel like you're the only one that's had them thoughts, you know, the dark thoughts, the thoughts where you're just ignoring everything, pretending everything's absolutely fine, trying to make everybody else happy. There's somebody, at least one person will have had one of them thoughts that you've had. And it's really quite nice when you have that moment with someone, because I've had it several times in Sarah Star when people have come in, and it's the feeling of your heart lifting because you realise, oh my God, it's not just me. You know, and that's really important when you're not well. Identification, being able to identify with at least someone who can say to you, do you know what, you're not mad. I've thought that too. Because I read recently, you know, the statistics for people who have or have even survived cancer, the statistics of suicide are really quite high. And there's a lot of survivors' guilt. You know, it makes me incredibly sad. There's moments as well where, especially if you're younger and you're looking at your parents, and like my mother-in-law and father-in-law as well, I know it breaks their heart, you know, to see that me and Chris are going through this and the kids are going through this, and it's devastating. But talking about it is better. It is. That's the only way we're all going to get through, to normalise the abnormal, really, and have these conversations that really, they're not very nice. And you might feel like you're torturing someone just by asking them for a favour, but you're not really. Like, and if it's shy bairns getting out.
100%.
What do you think you would be like?
What if I...
Yeah, like, how do you feel about reaching out to people and asking for help?
Well, I'm not very good at
Her
it.
face said it all. You're like frozen.
Well, I'm not very good at it, and I think it's because I like to think of myself as an independent person, you know. And if I want something, I'll sort it out. If I've got a problem, I'll sort it out. And so the way that that's shown up, like say in my relationship with my husband, is I just don't ask. And then on my not so fine days, I'll get annoyed that I'm not getting the thing I haven't asked for.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I hear that too.
But it's just this. It's almost like a reluctance to ask for help. Now, if I was ill, you know, I wonder if it would change. I don't know.
And that you've just explained exactly what I was like, and I think, I don't know if there's like a fear of vulnerability there, or I've always been independent, you know, and the way that you're brought up as well, you know, you were the same, worked from teenager, you know, just you have to work for what you get and all of them things, and then all of a sudden people are like, I want to help you, ask for help.
Yeah,
it's a bit alien, isn't it?
It is alien. But the magic thing, though, is that when you ask and you get it, it's like, wow, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
How amazing is that?
Why was I so afraid?
Well, yeah.
Because what do we think's going to happen as well? Like, if I rang you and said, oh, Nicky, I'm really struggling today, like, could you give me a lift somewhere?
Yeah.
Did I think you were going to go, no?
No.
Ride your bike?
Well, that's the thing. And like you said before, you know, when people get an opportunity to do something for you.
Yeah.
And I know, like, if I can ever have an opportunity to help someone, if they ask me for the help, I feel privileged to be the one that they've asked, you know? And so I think it's a bit of kind of balancing and reckoning in your head to say, well, okay, but then, so if I ask for help, someone else is going to have the bit of joy that comes with giving.
Yeah, but I've also just realised something, that obviously I couldn't just let people help me. Instead, I had to start a charity so I can help more people. The madness.
The madness. But it does help so many people. And it's an amazing thing. And especially, like you were saying before, having that sense of community where people can come along. And yes, the illness might be slightly different, or the circumstances might be slightly different. But the fact is, you're all dealing with something huge. And there's the commonality, I think, like, you know, for everyone is needing to dig deep and needing to be brave, even when they don't feel like, on the days when they don't feel like being brave. But there's a bit of a strength, you can tell, and this is the conversations I've had with people who come to Sarah's Stars, to be surrounded by other people who are in a similar type of scenario.
Do you know what's nice as well? Oh, I was thinking about this. A lady said to me recently, she said she was always afraid to speak to people who had cancer or had some real big health issue because she didn't know what to say. And she started coming and helping out at Sarah Star, and she said the gift that it's given her is she just treats everybody normally. And that's what she learned from coming in. And I thought that's really beautiful, because I remember being in them type of situations where it's so huge. You're so afraid to say something stupid. So a lot of the time you just don't say anything at all. And then you feel really guilty and you overthink it, and you're like, that person's not well, and now they think I'm really rude. And it's like, sometimes you're better just saying the stupid thing.
100%, I think so. I mean, I remember years ago, actually just after Si died, so that when my brother, he had his accident, and I was off work with the trauma for, like, I think it was about 7 or 8 weeks. And when I went back, the majority of people were lovely and very brave and said something meaningful, or even just, I've been thinking of you, or something like that. And there was one of the women that I worked quite closely with, and she didn't mention anything. And it really stung. It really stung, because she just pretended like nothing had ever happened. And I knew she knew, and she knew I knew she knew, and all that sort of thing. And I just remember thinking, that's not good enough. Like, I know you feel uncomfortable, but your discomfort is not, that's not the most important thing here. You need to be compassionate to somebody else. And that was just, that might sound a little bit harsh. I don't mean it to sound harsh. It's just, it was that realization of, I don't ever want, if I'm in that same situation, to not say whatever it is. So ever since then, and that was like 13 years ago, whenever there's been a really difficult situation or a horrendous situation, I've made sure I said something. It's not the right thing to say, you know, it's not the best thing to say, it doesn't change anything, but at least it shows you're willing to put yourself, you know.
Yeah, because you can even just say, I don't know what to say to you.
I don't know what to say.
Because a lot of people will say that to me now, and it's quite refreshing, because I simply say, neither do I.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's okay to say that, because sometimes we don't have the answers.
Yeah.
And there isn't anything wrong with that either. But it's so, that grief after you've lost someone and going back into work is such a really awkward, horrible time. You're trying to find some normality. And I feel like there's a point where nobody can do right for doing wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're just like, you know, there are moments, because your life's falling apart, but everyone's there just getting on with it.
Well,
it's the life still goes on.
Felt for you?
As in, life goes on.
Yeah, like at the point where you're dealing with the big stuff, and you've like Chris and the kids and your sister and your family all dealing with the big stuff. And then I'm imagining, you know, like you look on social media, everyone's living their best life and, you know, look like they haven't got a care in the world. I know we shouldn't believe what we see on social media, but how does that feel for you?
It doesn't actually bother me. I'm generally quite happy to see people doing what they're doing, but I do think it's a process as well where, like, I'm not, I think it's because I don't want all these grand gestures. Like, I'm not thinking, never going to get to go to wherever, New York. You know, I'm never going to, because that's not helpful for me, really. But I can understand why people might feel like that, because there's a lot of loss. That's what it is. There's so much loss within an illness. And it isn't just what people think. You know, it's, you know, the obvious losses are, you know, the things I can't do anymore. I can't go on a roller coaster. Stupid things like that. Where Alice said to me earlier, I'd love to go to the trampoline park. Why can't you come on the trampoline? Do you know, it's little things like that. And the fact that I don't look sick. So that can be really hard at times, because I also am still that independent person. So I will not volunteer that I'm unwell. Obviously I've got something going on here with the whole pretend I'm fine. I don't think I do really, but I think it's more there's so many invisible things going on in people at the minute. You know, there's autism, ADHD, mental health issues, bipolar, postnatal depression. You can't see it. And you can't see what I've got either. And so I tend to identify with people who are in similar situations. And that's why Sarah Star is what it is. And it's not just for people who have cancer, because there's a whole other world out there of people who are struggling and no one's given them the support that they need. Like that, I think, rather than going on social media and thinking, oh, look at all these brilliant lives, I'm trying to go on and think, look at all these people who think that that's a brilliant life. Wouldn't it just be nice to be able to deal with what we all have going on, you know, and kind of get through the day? I just, yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? Plus, I think everyone's different. You know, just because I'm saying that doesn't mean that's how everyone feels. I feel like I've gone off on one. Gone on a tangent.
Well, I remember at the point where we lost my brother, where I wasn't sort of sitting on social media because I just wasn't interested. But if I did go on and there was people smiling and living their lives, I was just angry, like really angry. And bless them, they hadn't done anything wrong.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they hadn't done anything wrong. But I think it's obviously part of the whole, like...
Oh, it's part of grieving.
It's part of grieving. And actually, you know, that I think... And I hadn't understood it. This is slightly off on a tangent, but it might be interesting because it could resonate with someone who's listening. But I remember learning about the grief curve, you know, and all of that. And I thought I understood it.
Yes.
I thought I understood it. And I thought that I thought the anger phase would mean that I would get angry with him for not being here, or him for having gone off on an adventure.
Right. Oh.
I don't know why.
I think I just always thought I'd get angry at the world.
Well, it's anger at anything and everyone, and yourself, and the world. And
Yeah, I was angry at my dad when he was dying because he wouldn't. Well, I said he wouldn't eat. I mean, he had esophageal cancer. He couldn't eat.
Bless him.
But in my head, I was like, just eat your porridge. Like me Muller, none of it then hums. Eat your porridge, take your chemo, you'll be fine. But that was my dialogue.
Yeah.
Get him better, get him better, get him better. When he was so sick.
And he couldn't actually eat.
Oh, I mean, there was so much more going on than they even knew about. He had a tumour the size of a cricket ball behind his stomach. It was horrendous. So, yeah, but the anger part, I feel like also you kind of grieve in a process like that while you're going through it. But it's totally different for you. So I can understand why you might have felt angry at Sai, because was it because he went up the mountain?
But that was the thing. I thought, oh, I must have bypassed this anger phase because I could never get angry at him. It wasn't his fault. It was an accident, you know. And he was so wonderful. Why would I ever get angry with him? But it's not about being angry at the person. It's just about being angry in general. And I was really, really angry in general. It wasn't directed to him, but it was a sort of consequence of the accident. And I just didn't see it. I just thought that, well, that part of it doesn't apply to me because I'm not angry with him, and how can I be?
I'll skip that.
But else, I've skipped that part. You know, like literally polish my halo. But the reality was I was raging, absolutely raging at everything else.
Yeah, or Joanne was. She
really?
was furious.
What, with your dad?
No, the world.
Right, okay.
Why him?
Yeah. No, I just meant like when your dad died. Yeah.
Yeah, she was furious with the world. Why him? Whereas I'm starting to recognise through talking about this, I think I went through it when I was like wooling him to get better. I think I was angry then. At like, what, just do what you're told. And then I got cancer myself and realised it's not that simple. Just eat.
Just eat.
Sure.
Did somebody say?
Oh, no. It's just, a lot.
And I think one of the big takeaways, I think, from all the conversations that we have ever had is this idea of like the unexpected gift, which really is, in my kind of way of looking at it, it's a real shift in perspective from your point of view
Yeah.
about what's actually important
Hugely.
and what's really not.
Yeah. And so probably one of my first shifts was one of the conversations I had with my dad before he died. And I remember sitting, and it's a really surreal to even think back because I was so in it, in the middle of it. And I said, who's going to tell me all the answers? Because he was my person. And we've got a really lovely open family, and to be fair, we all do talk a lot. But my father, I feel like, was a bit like our oracle. You know, he'd kind of seen it all, and he was just like the go-to. And he just said, you already know all the answers. And that's resonated with me so much. Like in the past, well, that's 11 years now since we've lost him, coming up to. And that's been a bit of a saviour to me, really. Because I feel like when I do think, or I'm looking for an answer, sometimes I hear it in his voice. You know, that kind of way. And I don't know, I really love that for me, that I've got, that was precious for me. And I feel like there's been so many other moments of spurring me on when I see things that other people are doing or things that are happening where I would be like, oh, my father, but I absolutely loved that moment, or that was his sense of humour. Like the time I'd come back after the funeral and life was settling down again. And like at that time, the kids were 1.5 and 3, I think, or 2 and 3. Charlie came running into the kitchen and I was standing with a Viennese whirl. And I didn't know whether I was going to cry or stuff it down my throat or what I was going to do with it, because it was my father's favourite. And I just was like, Charlie, your granda loved these. And he went, not beating them now because he's dead. I thought, that's my father's sense of humour. I was like, thanks, Dad.
They're funny, the kids.
They are funny. They are, and they keep me going. And I think it's that's, God, I credit them for getting me this far. I just think I look at them and think, dying's not an option right now. And maybe that's just what keeps me going. Yeah.
What about conversations with your family? Are there any conversations that have really stood out for you?
I don't know. There's been so many. It becomes really surreal. And I think because I'm quite logical in how I explain what's happening, it almost becomes medical. You know, the way I'll give the news back to everyone. I think that they probably spend more time talking to each other and trying to get their heads around it. Because I'm quite practical, so I'm like, so this is what I'm going to do. But most recently has been the hardest because I didn't want to have further treatment. And I thought I had an option, and I didn't. And I think that was a really hard conversation for the entire family because it's so out of your control. And I just think they all wanted, as much, I think as well, they had all talked about how I had said I wasn't doing anymore. And they were trying to prepare themselves for that. And then, you know, it wasn't an option not to have more treatment, because if my liver function fails, then I'm really screwed. So, yeah, it's going down a whole new path. So that was actually a pretty new thing that's happened recently with everyone. And I think they all, and you know them, they all go off how I am. So it's almost like leading by example. And I think I've become a bit of a pro at it now. I'm not too bad at that. But then I'm saying that I'm also probably being more honest now than I've ever been before. You know, I think I'm too tired to protect everyone. Like, because it's a lot. It's been going on for a long time, and recently it just keeps getting worse. And the worse it is on the inside, the better I seem to look on the outside, which is really quite cruel. It's
confusing.
Yeah, and it's really confusing for my kids. Like, because it's confusing as an adult, but for your children to look at you and all they see is mum anyway. It's that's the way I want it. And can I have? And that's, do you know what I mean? That's the dream. Yeah, what's for tea?
Yeah.
Just for them to roll their eyes at me. I'm like, yay, he looked at me. So it's like just enjoying the teenage drama of it all. But having this thrown into the mix is, but honestly, they're my little heroes. They blow me away every day. They just have perfect timing with the jokes when to come in. And they're really, really empathetic kids. And I think that it's been an unexpected gift because had they not gone through this in life, I just don't think they would be the amazing empathetic people that they are today. They've had to deal with an awful lot, but they've done it with grace and humility. They don't act like victims. They don't use it as a tool at all. And, a recent report at school, one of the teachers said, if I brought someone into the room and said, which two kids do you think have this going on at home? She said they would never in a million years pick your kids. She said you would not know there was anything going on in your house. And that felt like a huge compliment to me because I thought, that's the job I wanted to do as a parent. I want to give my kids the information so they know what's going on because I promised I would tell the truth. But I also want to make sure that they've got a well-rounded life. And they do. And they're okay. And I need that for me so that I know that they're going to be okay. But I also do things like I feel like I'm in a race to give loads of prep talks and information, and I might be overdoing it. Sometimes Alice looks at me completely shell-shocked and I'm like, oh, she's 12. Shouldn't have said that. But I do feel like I'm trying to get out, get all the big bits out, the big bits of advice and, but they do just look at me like I'm mental.
Yeah.
Which is nice. I like it.
And fair.
It's fair.
And fair.
It is fair.
So I remember you telling me a while ago about a question that someone had asked you, and it was along the lines of, if we could grant you one wish, anything, right, one wish, what would it be?
I think they expected me to say that I would never have got cancer or that I didn't have cancer now or it was gone forever. But I didn't. I said that maybe I could have a bit more time because I wouldn't be who I am today had I not got cancer. And that is the unexpected gift, is that it's made me who I am today and it's given me my army of support. It's given me so much joy. It's given me the opportunity to look at things in a completely different way. So, as awful as it might sound, why would you give that up? Because in in how I see things, I would much prefer to be that person and be here for not as long than be here for a really long time and just be ignoring what's really going on around me. Because it's a little bit pointless. Just exist.
You see, I find that, and I remember saying it to you at the time when we had that conversation, that perspective really shocked me in a way, because I would have assumed anybody in your type of position,
the right mind.
No, not in the right mind.
I don't think these are meant to be funny, but I really like them.
So I remember hearing you say that and being like honestly quite shocked, because I would have just assumed that anybody in that sort of situation would say, oh, hands down, I just wish that I'd never got ill. I wish it had never happened. I wish I hadn't had to deal with this for all the different reasons that you can imagine. But you didn't. And it was more that it's more that you're saying, well, actually, I really recognize the fact that if I hadn't gone through all of that, I would just be a different person today than who I am. And I don't think I would necessarily appreciate the things in the way that I do. And it's because of the illness that's brought things into such sharp focus. Is that how you feel?
That's totally it, yeah. And I think as well, we do this in my family. My brother in particular always loves asking questions. And he went through a phase of asking people true love or £1 million. And this was years and years ago. But I remember even then thinking, true love? Because it means something. Like, I'd always want something that means something. Because really, if you just scratch the surface, there's not much going underneath if you just want the £1 million. In this day and age, I don't think it would get you as far as you think either. And that was about 20 years ago. That was his question.
Very relevant. Now you'd have to wrap it up to 100 million. Inflation. Yeah.
But I like that I am now in a place where I can think like that, because I'm sure probably this wouldn't always have been how I would have thought. It's just the experiences that I've ended up going through. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about you? True love or £1 million?
True love. Oh, hang on. No, maybe it depends. If we went with 100 million.
Adam, don't listen to this.
I think true love, and it's, well, because it's priceless. And actually the way that you look at life and relationships and nature and experiences and time with friends and connection, all of that sort of stuff's priceless.
Oh my God, yeah. And all of them laughs, all of them feel good moments, like you can't buy a feeling. Mm-hmm. I think that's the big thing, isn't it? You could chase that feeling forever. But they're the most amazing times when you're really belly laughing with your friends, you know, and with the kids, and you know, they're my perfect moments, definitely. So you and I were discussing how some of our listeners, our watchers, might want to ask a question or two of us.
Yeah, so if there's anything that that you've heard while we've been having this conversation that you've got a question about, or you want to know a bit more about, then I would love to hear your questions. Sarah would love to hear your questions as well. So please just put a comment and get in touch, because we would love to answer them for you.
Fabulous. See you next time.
See you next time. You want to start again.
That was good. Stop beatboxing.
No, I'll tell you why, because I didn't want to say the word triggered, because that's like,
it's a trigger. Just say I wanted a bit more time.
We're just having a conflab, by the way.
Yeah.
Don't put that in.